everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? Yeah, so the title and the thumbnail do not lie. Hang on, let me fix my freaking camera. There we go. But yeah, so Derek Carr decides to write his goodbye to the Raiders. But before we can all talk, and kind of go into discussion with that and kind of get my kind of take on this. But before you get into it, if you guys are new, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, make sure to ring that notification bell. And also, if you want to join the membership program, check the pinned comment in the pinned comment above or at the link in the description. So, obviously, this is kind of like the biggest hot topic right now in NFL football is Derek Carr possibly leaving not say possibly, but actually leaving the Las Vegas Raiders. And at times, how do I say this? It's like it's got to the point where like the fact that Carr did what he could for the Raiders, despite having 6 head coaches in the last 9 years. And the only Colts, surprisingly, I've actually read that the Colts were not interested in getting Derek Carr because Jets is a possibility. But what's good, normal guy? But yeah, it's like the Jets. Like I said, it could be a possibility. Trying to think, there's a couple other teams I could think you could use him, but outside of that, I mean, it's just I don't know. It's like this is I'm gonna say crazy, but it's getting to the point where like the Raiders, I think, really screwed up Derek Carr. I really do. I do think the organization itself and the people who are part of this organization has screwed up with Derek Carr. Because I've seen Raider Nation, who I'm good friends, good buddies, with a couple of content creators from the Raider Nation. Some of them do think it's at times just the organization's problem. Because the way that I see it is the fact that Carr, like I said, 6 head coaches in the last 9 years in the league. It's at some point, and I think at some point, Derek Carr, I think, kind of really understood, he's kind of fed up with it. And, at times, Mark Davis says, it's most likely, first of all, Devontae is going to have to stay no matter what. They already signed him to that massive 5-year deal. And that's what kind of the people, that's going to be a whole other thing I'm going to kind of talk about, probably another time. But I just feel like Carr could do a lot better elsewhere because you really think about it, I mean, who wants to play under Josh McDaniels? And that just entire team just was not looking great. I mean, Devontae Adams had a really another nice season, but Mark Davis, as an owner of that franchise, has not really done much to show for it the last handful of years since he's taken over since I think 2011. I could be wrong, but at some point it's going to get to the point where it's just like, when's enough on Mark Davis? And I know the Raider Nation is kind of starting to get really fed up with Mark Davis as the owner, because the fact that since he's been owner, he has really not done anything to show for it. A lot of times it's like, I mean, I don't know, like it's one of the craziest. I don't say craziest, but it's kind of really ridiculous to think that it's like, oh, and the fact that Carr gets blamed a lot. First of all, Carr's been not like this year has not been his best statistical season, but the dude has been consistent since he's been in this league. And you had to think of the times that Derek Carr, what talent Derek Carr had to work with at times. I mean, look at this past season. This, obviously with the season still going on, but for most teams. But the thing, Devontae Adams, all his ties to Fresno State. Look, Matt Collins, not great, but decent receiver, but could do a lot better. Hunter Renfrow at times when he's got to stay healthy. Definitely Darren Waller has been hit and miss sometimes with the Raiders in terms of the tight end position. And the fact that they're going to let some of these guys walk or definitely trade them at some point, because the Colts, like the fact that I've seen, people say, Cards to the Colts, I don't see that happening. And the reason why, like I said, the Colts are just a rebuilding team. I just don't think that's possible. But I think the Jets could be a possibility just because that, the owner of the Jets is willing to spend money on the veteran quarterback. In this case, they were, if, say, if the Raiders do decide to find a way to get out of Carr's extension, it's going to be one. I have normal guy, but like I said, that's going to be another story for probably either tomorrow or probably for the next week or so. Because like I said, I mean, I'm not really going to be talking much college football. But like I was saying, if somehow the Raiders find a way to get out of outside, really much get away from that extension that they gave Derek Carr, and if the Jets want to spend money, and which most likely it's looking like the Jets are willing to do so, since let's be real, I've been seeing reports that they might move on from Zach Wilson. I think that's kind of really never been given, but in terms of what he and the thing about this too, and like I said, Carr has been their quarterback since they took him in 2014. But he also and this is basically what he wrote, saying, quote, "Raider Nation, it breaks my heart I didn't get an opportunity to say goodbye in person. We've certainly been on a roller coaster in our 9 years together. From the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful and appreciative of the 9 years of support you gave to my family and me. We've always shared our both heartbreaking moments and thrilling game-winning drives, and I always feel like you were there next to me." So kind of saying, look, and basically what we're taking away from, especially from that first part of, his kind of is like a goodbye thing, is the fact that he did what he could for this Raiders team, especially the fact that, like I said, been through 6 different head coaches in the last 9 years. McDaniels, probably Jack Del Rio, Rich Bisaccia, and there's a couple others I'm missing up the top of my head. But it's just like, you really can't help feel for Derek Carr. I mean, especially all this shit that he's been kind of, well, let's just say, just kind of gone through. And the fact that, he did what he could for this team. Now, granted, I mean, the weapons around him has not been the best in terms of quality outside of, especially this year when they traded for Devontae Adams. But if you really think about it, like I said, Darren Waller has not really it's been hit and miss sometimes. Hunter Renfrow, has a bit of a history problem, but I think he has been a solid weapon for him. Matt Collins, not the greatest in terms of having like I think their fourth receiver. I think they could do a lot better in that area. But that's something that I wouldn't know because I mean, especially from what I'm hearing that the Raiders are cash strapped and whatnot. But he also goes to say it's especially hard to say goodbye. But honestly, I can say that I gave you everything I had every single day in season, end of the off season. It certainly wasn't perfect, but I hoped I was able to leave you with more than a few great memories as Raiders fans. So that's basically what I said, stated before. This dude gave gave the Raider Nation everything he's had the last 9 years. And to be quite honest, the fact that the the Raiders organization has not done nothing to show for it since having him under center since 2014 is ridiculous to say the least. And it's really, not saying disgusting, but it's just, I would say flat out embarrassing. But at some point, and Carr is not getting any younger. He's only 30, about to be turned 32 this coming March. But at times I do see why the Raiders could have a possibility to move on from Carr because I think, but I don't know. Like it's just the fact that this Raiders team has just been, what's the word? Lackluster is basically the term I'm looking for. And to be quite honest, I really do think Carr wish nothing but the best for Derek Carr or where he ever goes. Because quite frankly, though, like I said, and especially going back to what I said earlier about the talent around him, the offensive line has not done him any justice at the same time. If you looked at some of, at times where he has to scramble at times, which, Carr can do from time to time, but it's not really his other worldly skill set, is know how to run. Most of the time he's just pretty much your standard typical pocket passer, gunslinger, that type of quarterback. But also part of this says, thank you to the city of Oakland for taking us in. Thank you to the city of Las Vegas for allowing to us proudly call you home. Thank you to the organization, my teammates, all my coaches and staff and everyone who's helped me the last 9 years in those two buildings. Thanks to all of the Raider Nation that supported, encouraged, pushed, and uplifted me at different times along this journey. Raider Nation is truly special. And yeah, he's not wrong. Raider Nation is just one of those fan bases that I really can't hate because, I mean, there's just one of those passionate fan bases. Now, granted, at times they do have this one where, I wouldn't say a weird narrative around the Raider Nation at one point, but there was always that, and think that, throughout their, since being around since 1960, at times, yeah, I mean, they did have this one narrative where they were kind of like the rebels of the NFL, or this before the NFL and the AFL kind of merged. But I think Derek Carr, like I said, done everything he could, but at times the organization has not really done, I would say, not much to the chagrin of most diehard Raiders fans. And, it's just one of those things. It's going to get to it's like, a lot of times it's like, I've seen some Raider fans that have want Carr gone. You have to look at this many different ways. Look, Carr is, not had the best statistical season, but if you take away last year, like the dude's been nothing but consistent the last 9 years. Now, like I said, this year has not, in terms of statistics, has not been the best, but he's been kind of Mr. Consistency for the Raiders. And, despite the fact of the kind of personnel he's had around him during that time, like I said, didn't have a great O-line, had a decent receiving core, like I said, with, Adams, Renfro, Darren Waller for tight end, and definitely Matt Collins as the number 4. And at times, if you need Josh Jacobs to catch a few passes, I mean, you got him too, but he's going to be walking out the building since they already declined his 5th-year option. And, it's going to, and this is where sometimes I do agree with some of the Raiders fans that, Mark Davis does need to sell the team because like I said, Mark Davis as an owner has not really done much to really help this team because we thought this team could have been a lot, could prove a threat in the AFC West. But boy, did we look really stupid, It's just one of those things. It's like like most of us NFL fans overhype the Raiders because pick up Chandler Jones, just kind of retooling in some areas. We thought this team could have been a double-digit win team just on talent alone, but unfortunately, that was never the case. Unfortunately, they finished with a sub 500 record, missed out on the postseason. It got to the point where I don't want to say he got to the head of Carr, but I think at some point, I think Carr could have, well, I would say kind of getting fed up I want to say fed up, even though there are at times during his press conferences, which you have seen, he has taken some subtle shots at some people, definitely Josh McDaniels in particular. Just how he speaks, it's, one of those things I would say, I think Carr can do better. I think he can do better elsewhere if you have the right coaching, the right talent, and stuff like that. Who's to say? I mean, the dude still can still sling it with the best of everybody. I mean, granted, yeah, the Raiders, in terms of the receiving talent, it wasn't great, but I mean, it was actually still pretty good. Except for, at times with the depth with battle of injuries, like I said, with Darren Waller, who's been hit and miss. Hunter Renfrow, who spent a good, I would say, good portion of the time on IR. And at times, you could see at times where this receiving core outside of Devontae Adams has not really done really much to show for it. And, and yes, Mac Hollins has his moments here and there, but outside of that, I mean, outside of Devontae Adams, you had, like I said, this is going back to what I said a couple times that, like I said, Waller's been hit and miss partially at the time. Like I said, I mean, the fact that they had both Waller and Renfrow, when they had them on the IR, you could definitely tell they had not been the same. Matt Collins, like I said, not the greatest, third or fourth receiver on the depth chart, I would say. But, he does have his moments. And this is coming from an Eagles fan who has experienced a guy like Matt Collins who, what's good, Arkham? What is good? But yeah, it's, this thing with Derek Carr, though, this is what kind of really frustrates me just as a football fan. And especially the amount of times I have worked with a lot of Raiders content creators over the last 2 years. I don't really think Carr's had really that bad of a quarterback. Like, now, granted, yes, like I said, has not been the best season of his career, despite that, the coaching has not been the greatest in terms of that. I mean, like I said, I mean, I think, like I said, he's been kind of Mr. Consistency, no matter what coaching he's had the last 6, even though he's been in the league 9 years. I mean, the fact he's had to go through 6 of them, and it's still, and I think it also stems to the fact that it goes up to the ownership. If you don't have a good, and McDaniels has not really shown it, but I could be wrong. I mean, it's just a 1 year sample size, and at some point it's going to get to, and I'm thinking to myself, what could have done better if they didn't just go with a guy like McDaniels? I think this Raiders team could have been a lot different if they could have went with a guy that's, that's more qualified. Because, like I said, the McDaniels hire I was never a fan of. Number one, because he does not done well as a head coach. And I think I talked about a couple times. I think I touched upon this a couple times where certain corners just do not make good head coaches. We saw it with, like I said, McDaniels has not really done it. If looking back at his time in Denver, that was an absolute travesty. I mean, they had fucking Tim Tebow as your quarterback. Like you can't tell me that was just not great. And, the things could have been, I wish the things could have been a lot different for the Raiders had they not go with a guy like McDaniels to coach that team. Now, would have been a lot different if they had already had a better coach in mind and have him as an OC. Now that could have been a lot different. I think this team could have been a little bit more different. And definitely, I think I don't know. Patrick Graham at times is kind of getting a harder read on at times. And it's just one of those things. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. But if any Raiders fans are watching this out there, let me know how y'all feel about this. Because I want to kind of get your guys' side of things. Just want to kind of understand, how y'all feel if Carr decides to leave. Now, it's like I said, it's going to be hard to get out of that extension. that he signed at the same time. I think it was what over 40 million over 2 seasons, I think it was. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. If you don't have a right coach for that. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I think he deserves a lot better than what this team and I can imagine, that's going to really frustrate Davante Adams. I really do think that's going to really frustrate. Don't be surprised if somehow Davante Adams gets, voices frustration or something like that. And that's kind of how I think we kind of see this kind of trending pattern. It's like, if a quarterback, I mean, especially like I said, especially, I think somebody in the chat mentioned, how close they were, both DC and Adams were, especially after their college days. It's like, it's really shown that Mark Davis has not done anything to set up Carr and this rest of this team for success, because on paper, this team should have been at least a 10 plus win team on paper. But like you said, Arkham, like this McDaniels has screwed this team over time and time again. You had games where you should have had at least more, like I said, 10 plus wins, but your 5, most of that were decided by 1 score or less. Your defense has not done jack squat, because I didn't want to say the other word because of demonetization purposes. But Max Crosby's also been Mr. Consistency since coming into the league. Chandler Jones actually finds to finally wake up, towards the end of the year. It's going to get to the point where it's just like, is really Patrick Graham the guy to really lead this defense? Because you got to reinvest in that offensive line. Definitely get more defensive pieces, because let's be real, because your linebacking core stinks. I mean, look, like I said, you got really good edge rushes in Chandler Jones and Max Crosby. That's what I'm saying. Like, what could have been on paper, but yet McDaniel screwed this talent offensively, anyways. So both, you could definitely also make the argument that you could also put blame on Patrick Graham for not doing, the right stuff with the defense. Now, granted, look, there's some guys that I feel like is still underrated talents over there. Devon Diablo, I think, is still very underrated. There was another guy I can't think of on the top of my head, but it's ridiculous. It's heartbreaking because, like I said, it's heartbreaking. And number two, like I look like a complete idiot. And everybody here, especially myself, Jeff, here at the Hardcore Sports, we all look like complete idiots for overhyping the Raiders. And and this is what we get. Just absolute garbage of a season. Now, I'm not saying the talent level is not trash, but it's just how the Raiders played is ridiculous beyond belief to me. Because, like I said, McDaniels has not really done anything to show to be a competent head coach. Now, if you could have brought him as an offensive coordinator, that could have been a bit of a different story. That's just me. But also, I goes to say the last part, for this, because like I said, I'm not going to spend too much on this. I would say, he also goes to says, quote, "I once said that if I'm not a Raider, I would rather be at home," and I meant that. But I never envisioned it ending this way. That fire burning inside me to win a championship still rages. A fire no man can extinguish, and only God. So I look forward to a new city and a new team who, no matter the circumstance, will get everything I have. Winning a championship is always what I've wanted, and will continue to work towards. God bless you with love, DC4. Because I've always been like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Derek Carr, but I've kind of given him respect where it's due. The dude, like I said, has been Mr. Consistency and has done a lot of good stuff for the Raiders. But outside of that, like, what are this organization has not done anything to show the appreciation that Derek Carr has given to this organization for 9 years through 6 different head coaches. You should, like, it's sad. Like Arkham said, it's been one hell of a season. Not say hell of a season, but a heartbreaking way, because if you looked at some of the games that the Raiders have played, and it's like, I'm thinking to myself, it gets you thinking. It really does. And the fact of the matter is that, you don't have the talent. You have tried to put this talent together, both offensively and defensively, and has not really shown to put it together and have a good season. And knowing the fact that, the Raiders don't have any money to spend, knowing that they're stuck with McDaniels for whatever the hell long the contract is, not to mention they still got to pay out Gruden's contract, or unless they did something otherwise to avoid paying that. But, it's just like, I just really feel bad for Derek Carr. I really do. The fact that this dude put his blood, sweat, and tears into this Raiders wearing the silver and black. And at times, and I've seen some great moments, some really awesome moments from Derek Carr. Now, granted, I mean, well, I can tell you the experience of it. Last year, we made it look like we pretty much, at the fact that, we sucked at, our defensive coordinator, Jonathan Kennedy, kind of was absolutely ass of calling plays. So we kind of made him look like kind of like Tom Brady out there. But, well, that's besides the point. But for me, it's just like, I just want to see, like I said, Derek Carr is just one of those guys. I think any quarterback needy team that could use, if they're willing to spend on a veteran quarterback. Like I said, I think the Jets is a perfect opportunity for this to at least get someone like Carr, because I feel like, you got Garrett Wilson, you got Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, who I think is still a bust. And I'm going to put that, like I said, I always put that on record. I'm just going to still stand by that. We got Breece Hall when he comes back. James Robinson hasn't really been the same, but I think he could be another solid back. But but outside of that, I mean, what can Carr do? Like, Carr can do so much as a starting quarterback for his squad or whoever's going to be with, no matter how you look at it. At the end of the day, this is pretty much, you can blame the Raiders organization for driving Derek Carr away from the Raiders, not from the Raider Nation. I think some Raider Nation, we got to be very appreciative of what Derek Carr has given to that organization. Now, like I said, Mark Davis has not really done much to show that appreciation for Derek Carr, not putting the right coaches around him, not putting great pieces around him, not just offensively, but defensively as well, try to help this team be successful. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that Mark Davis is really shown to be a true and competent owner. But outside, I mean, there was a couple other incompetent owners that I've kind of criticized, and for good reason. And for those who don't know who I'm talking about, it's probably Stephen Ross of the Miami Dolphins and the McCasseys of the Chicago Bears. But I think I'm definitely putting Mark Davis up there in terms of when it comes to competent owners. But I know there's probably going to be some Raider Nations could probably disagree with me, but that's all well and dandy. But I'm just seeing what, and you can also blame whoever was in the front office. I don't think really Ziegler should really get too much blame, but I think he should get blamed a little, to get some portion of the blame for not making the right moves when you had the opportunity to at least fix your season, for crying out loud. I mean, look, trader Devontae Adams, I thought that was one of the best moves I think made. Now you got to say, okay, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what could they do to improve on that? Like the offensive line has not been great. I think there's probably countless times that I've seen Raiders games where he just constantly runs, I'm not saying runs, but scrambles out of the pocket with no protection. At some point, that's something I think the Raiders have to invest in, is a better offensive line, because I feel like the offensive line is bad to the point where, like, it's bad. It's kind of as bad as what the Chicago Bears is having, in terms of just have bad O-line problems. And, in just certain spots. But I mean, defensively, you definitely could use different defensive pieces. I mean, that secondary, I think you could improve on secondary if Patrick Graham does not want to fix. They try to adjust some schemes of whatever what they were hoping for. But I don't know. I like I said, I don't know. This is coming from an outsider who's has, like I said, has very rarely seen Raiders games before. I've just seen throughout Raider Nation just how they feel, and knowing that the fact that Derek Carr, may not be a Raider for much longer. So, like I said, we're going to have to wait and see how everything has turned out. If these Raiders do decide from it or decide to trade for it, at least, if they just decide to trade him, let's per se, at some point, you got to at least get the best value as possible. Try to get some draft assets as well. But I don't know. Well, I want to kind of get you guys' thoughts before we wrap it up here. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's you really can't help feel bad for Derek Carr at some point in this career, especially with what he's, especially the hard work he's kind of put in as the quarterback since being a second round pick in 2014. It's just one of those things. It's really kind of hard to fathom and just kind of imagine just seeing, not seeing Derek Carr in the silver and black. That's just me as just a general football fan. But outside of that, that's going to do it. I really do hope to wish nothing but the best for Derek Carr. Because like I said, I mean, wherever he goes, I hope he does that, make that team better with the right coaching, right piece, with some good offensive pieces and a good defense to really help win games. Because, it's just like, you pretty much just, Derek Carr, I could imagine how fed up he could have been, basically, probably saying to himself, like, I've gave this organization everything I had for the last 9 years, but have they done anything to kind of help me to show appreciate of my hard work? Absolutely not. But I mean, who am I to say? But I'm just kind of putting this into try to paint a picture of what could be going through Derek Carr's mind. Because I don't know whenever his extension kicks in, but I could be whenever that decides to kick it, or if somehow the Raiders just find a way to try to move on from that and let some other team kind of take on that extension, or whatever the case may be. And I just feel like Carr, I think, deserves a lot better in the world than what the Raiders have tried to put around him. And I mean, I think he's done a really good job since the Raiders bring it in Devontae Adams. But the fact of the matter is that the fact that that Carr put a lengthy goodbye statement to not just the Raiders organization, but the Raider Nation themselves. At some point, I just feel like sometimes these I mean, look, I appreciate Die Hard fan when I see one, but at some point you have to put the Die Hard, think of that outside, and kind of put yourself of what he's going through. Like, where does your mind set after just seeing that this team could have had a potential to be, like I said, a potential threat in the AFC West, which we have not really seen as much, but at some point it's going to have to really linger and, I would say, eat up a little bit mentally for Derek Carr. But outside of that, I mean, it's going to be not to say interesting, but it's going to be, something to watch going forward. If he decides to either ask for a trade or at least find a way to leave the Raiders, which from what we've seen from this goodbye, it sounded like he does want to leave the Raiders, but I could be reading that wrong. Like I said, who am I to say, or who am I to? I'm trying to interpret the way he kind of puts it into that. If you catch my drift, but who am I to say? But with that being said, like I said, I appreciate everyone who's kind of tuned in, though. Like I said, it's not really one of those, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but, I'll probably talk more on it along with other NFL news as well on my NFL talk show at the same time. But if you guys are new, make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, make sure to ring that notification bell. If you guys want to join the members program, check the link in the description or in the pinned comment above. And with that being said, hope everybody has the rest of a wonderful night or afternoon, no matter where you may be watching. And I'll see you guys in the next one.